I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996 I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We've both been skull and bone with the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Hello, Ari Deadheads. Welcome back to another Ari Dead, your favorite weekly live call-in parapolitical conspiracy show. We have plenty to talk about today. We are in full gay Fedjacket season. The theater is in full effect, and you may as well enjoy the show, but realize they're all actors and it's all fake and gay. And to point out the faggotry once again, on this weekly occasion, we have the great Austin Picard, and myself, my goofy little self, free Tim Tuttle, correct, free my nigga. We got plenty to go through. I talked about this morning way too long, the current nonsense. I do tend to try to keep my show away from this sort of talking too much about, I don't know, because talking shit about Tim Pool or Benny Johns or any of these, slop type of vendors, if you will. Candace, I've covered a little bit more recently because she's kind of been the head thing, but yeah, it's getting weird. I think just shark has been beyond jumped. I mean, I don't know. Sure, maybe Candace can come out with some crazy receipts and drop it on our asses, and we go, oh shit. But we've gone a lot of craziness. We've gone apparently the most craziest of claims with no receipts and just kind of moving on to the next thing, it seems. I mean, I don't know. They got a lot of people with that initial little group chat, little trick. Maybe not trick, whatever. Maybe that was correct. And I think a lot of people now are like giving more umbrage than they should. He's looking a little whack, and that whackness has gone out to all sorts of different actors. It's getting, it feels like theater. What do you think, Austin? Does this feel like theater to you? Because I don't know. It's hard not for it to feel like theater. I mean, hell, we even got, the TPUSA, literally Kayfabe, like, come on my show. Well, come on this time. Well, I can't come on this time. Well, you should come on. Well, we said this time, and you're not making. It's just Kayfabe faggotry. I mean, it's all just, oh, someone showed at my house. Did they? I don't know. Really? I don't know. What do you think, Austin? Is it all fake and gay? Are there some of it perhaps real? What do you think? Do you think Phil just pulled off a desk pop and didn't want to admit to it? What do you think?
Oh my God. Well, I will say that it seems like it comes with the territory in terms of 'tis the nature of the influencer industrial complex in a sort of way. And I think we first called it the influencer wars are upon us in a way, right? And that seems to apply perfectly. Just as far as, I don't know how much of it is theater and how much of it is kind of pitting these ideological preferences against each other in a sort of sense to further escalate tension in the culture war, and especially considering how obvious individuals are sort of acknowledging the fact that there's kind of this conservative decline in a way that is effectively happening off the back of the Epstein scandal and various the Charlie Kirk assassination, right, in terms of just kind of the political success of what the conservative aisle and the Republicans at this moment are kind of achieving in the moment, at this time in this environment. So I don't know. It feels like political theater in more ways than one. And especially considering just the Tim Pool, Candace Owens effect, and Tim Pool kind of fell out of any sort of real relevancy in a sort of sense for a short time. He definitely wasn't a part of my algorithm for a little while until this most recent kind of Candace Owens bandwagon hop-on effect that seems to be taking place as well, whether you're pro Candace or kind of criticizing her in the moment. It does seem to be receiving this kind of priority spotlight in terms of the algorithm, and that alone should raise red flags and cause people to be a little more skeptical, I think, of how much of this is playing out in front of us to typically kind of redirect us back into these fundamental corrals in terms of our ideology and in the political paradigm. So I never really put much stock or emotional, I don't know. I don't really put much effort into these sort of strange relationship dynamics and of the influencers, because I don't know. I try to insulate myself from being too let's say, just in many ways psyoped, but I will say influenced by those very influencers, right? Just by a kind of their presentation of the information, which almost at all times seems to be provided to them by these either unnamed sources, right? That you have to trust me in this sort of kind of extraordinary, almost in terms of what is being the allegations or the accusations that are kind of the implications behind what is being presented, and then never follow up with any sort of credible reinforcement to that effect and corroborative evidence, and then be called out on that and never really feel the need to address it or acknowledge it in any sort of sense. And that alone, beware of who you listen to.
I think the pipe bomb story is actually kind of a good way to kind of understand these weird influencer dynamics that are going on in a more simpler fashion. If you kind of understand how I'm looking at this, because we had this pipe bomb story that like a few weeks ago. Was it Steve Baker over the Blaze, and then kind of building off of some Trust Me Bros from Kyle Seraphin and some information that came from a government contractor. They built up this story about the one chick Capitol Police, which who knows, could be her. I don't fucking know, but I just know that it was built on shoddy ground, and then that inevitably fall apart. I was pointing out all the different errors, throughout, and lo and behold, they ended up retracting. And then now the FBI has this other guy, supposedly this Norbit-looking motherfucker, and then now they're going, oh, well, it's become this silly tool where now it's become this schism where it becomes the people who were convinced of the early one and are skeptical of the FBI, which I am, don't get me wrong, then just immediately go, well, it's got the FBI's got to be full of shit. I think maybe Steve Baker, jumped the gun on that retraction, whatever. I think that's the case. And you're like, maybe that is the case. But it's also like the way you got there is unfounded, and I need something more. And it's this illusion that gets played, and then they do this whiplash where it kind of makes you feel like you need to pick one or the other when it's not a binary. Like it literally could be either of them or neither of them or both of them. It could even literally be both of them.
Right. Honestly, and after seeing kind of the really. It seems like there are two narratives that formed surrounding the J6 pipe bomber, and at least this new. I don't know how to really interpret it. It feels more like a patsy sort of narrative that is forming in a major sense, and especially considering the level of what was kind of presented to have been a legitimate confession that he allegedly, during interrogation, he allegedly confessed to placing the pipe bombs and also being a pro-Trump supporter and essentially kind of falling into the category of believing the 2020 election hoax and which is the way the mainstream media is framing this narrative, obviously. But they're making it seem as if he is without a doubt a pro-Trump supporter, and this is the motive behind it, is the obvious implication. And the confession was ran as front page news. But in reality, we have this this kind of new forming and emerging narrative that it seems to run counter and reject that very sort of a sense that he was an actual ideological conservative and Trump supporting individual who was motivated by that ideology. You know what I mean? And that in itself is very interesting, especially just understanding that no new evidence has been presented, and the timing of all of this in itself is cause for concern. But what really blew me away with this Brian Cole individual was this Zero Hedge article that I read about basically this mainstream media narrative surrounding him being this Trump supporter, conservative Republican, is entirely bogus. And the J6 pipe bomber was not a Trump supporter, and his family, and as well as apparently he has deep family ties, who seem to have even engaged in attempting to file legitimate legal action against the Trump administration for some sort of immigration policy, which I found to be interesting, especially considering that the investigators were originally stating internally that they believed others were involved with providing him with the kind of means necessary to procure the pipe bombs and the blasting caps and all these sort of things. But the craziest and most extraordinary kind of tie-in here is that it was reported that the family apparently had this bail bonds business, and this is the business who sued the Trump administration over immigration policy in a case that was decided in November of 2020. So it looks as if leading up to the very year that, right, or at least following the very kind of a criminal action that he allegedly engaged in, the family, and that he was employed at this bail bondsman business, right? Which that alone is interesting. You would think if he was fundamentally opposed to the rest of the family's political stance or beliefs, then he probably wouldn't be employed. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they're perfectly okay with coexisting, despite having entirely opposite kind of ideologies that they're practicing. But the family operation of this bail bonds business included helping illegal immigrants get out of ICE facilities. So that alone, it perfectly shows how obviously this is a counter, just as far as a narrative running entirely opposite to that of the mainstream version of the motivations behind this individual perpetrator. And anyway, the final point being that the public records show the business entangled itself in left-leaning causes, with Cole's father even teaming up with attorney Benjamin Crump, who previously represented the family of Trayvon Martin, to demand the Biden Justice Department investigate a Tennessee prosecutor who raised questions about the bail bond company. So it seems like the family profile is entirely inconsistent with that of what we're intended to believe and embrace as the mainstream official narrative of things. And really, it all falls apart in a sort of sense as far as the defense attorneys. I understand their job is to clearly cast doubt on the confession after he was brought into custody and being interrogated. But hey, how many times have we actually witnessed false confessions under these forced interrogations in a certain sense, and who else is unwilling to kind of just, I don't know, consider the possibility of pharmaceutical influence in terms of a kind of a chemical recipe in regard to interrogations of law enforcement. But that was really what I thought was kind of a damning criticism of what we're being led to believe in this case, right?
Well, a lot of people are pointing to this and using it as like as you kind of allude to, him being a patsy, and I will agree that gives more credence to it, but it also could be he's the one who did it, but it was that he was influenceable because of his. So it also, he could have been, contrived to be the patsy. He could actually be the one who literally did it, but he, because of his neurodivergence or whatever, he was more able to be manipulated into doing so. And we're kind of seeing this pattern over and over again. I mean, you've seen some of those videos of Crooks. He kind of seemed like a little bit of an autistic dork. I mean, there's, fucking, even Ralph is a fucking weirdo. I don't know if I'd say he was quite spectrum. He was just kind of weird, some weird turbo shit lib. But just bizarre. But this is a kind of a pattern that we keep seeing repeated. By the way, you guys can call in. Phone lines are open 1-833-722-DEAD or 1-833-722-3323 if you don't know how to count in letters. Call in. I see Ted in the chat Fedjacketing Wendy for some reason. I don't know why. I think we addressed recently, like you said something about his thinking that she went easy on Jolly West, when I'm like, I don't at all think she went easy on Jolly West. I don't understand how you would get that takeaway, but I'm all for hearing why Wendy's a fed or something. I don't think that, but I mean, if you read Aberration, the Heart Ran the Real, it's a holy fuck. It's kind of a goddamn, I don't know what's a word for a really, really, a tome on the evils of the state. So I really don't know how you get that from that. I don't think I've seen a more complete, description of some of the crazy MK Ultra techniques and technologies and stuff like that from a factual type perspective. It will kind of fucking blow your mind. But I don't know. I'm open to hearing something that says otherwise.
I did see, he also had mentioned earlier, just as the show was beginning in the chat, I think it was Uncle Ted that had mentioned the files being moved from a federal building in Arkansas to that of the Murrah building. Yeah, and that is interesting, and it was something I desperately wanted to include in my episode of OKC.
But you couldn't find anything on it, could you?
That was it.
Or scant. That's the thing. People always bring up this, like, these papers, or I don't know about the specific Mina angle he's going, but it's like, well, yeah, but I can never find anything to support it. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. All that I did find were allegations that were unsubstantiated, unfortunately, and that's what we're relying on. The way it falls perfectly in place with the potential formula, absolutely, it's worth considering. Especially the notion is that the Whitewater investigation was happening at the time, because the Whitewater scandal was there was an Senate investigative committee, I think it might have been House, I don't know, select investigative committee from Congress was essentially formed to investigate the Whitewater scandal and the Clinton connection in Mena, Arkansas, and Iran-Contra and all of this. And so essentially what had happened is, after Bill Clinton essentially wins the election and becomes president and leaves Arkansas as governor, he has the files moved to the Murrah Federal Building, and then green lights a domestic terror operation, essentially, in order to not only this was a layered operation. It wasn't only to prioritize the destruction of the Whitewater files that were allegedly being housed in the CIA's offices in that building itself. Apparently was a part of what was being alleged here, and so it's very likely that was at least the priority destructive zone in terms of what they wanted completely destroyed. Now, I don't think all of you already know that many of the charges didn't actually go off, especially under the daycare. They intended for the entire Murrah Federal Building to fall into its footprint in a sort of way, almost, But at the same time, it does seem like it very well could be that is legitimately one, at least, motive into what they at least were hoping to achieve in the context of this green light go domestic operation or black op.
And I'm completely open to that. Like, I'm completely open to that. But I will say, from my look into it, I just feel like it doesn't, after kind of, digging to the totality of it, it doesn't kind of seems like a small fries compared to the larger game. I mean, who knows? Maybe they want to tick one other thing off the check box, one other thing, other thing they can take care of at the same time, sure. But I just a lot of people try to use that as like an explanatory reason, because it's almost like not saying this is everyone who does it, but it's almost like the simplistic looking for a specific reason. It's like people always like the reason is like, well, why would the feds do X action? You're like, and they expect you to have this like concrete specific example, which fine enough, you actually kind of do have. You have the anti-terrorism bill that got passed right after that. But either way, even that aside, which is kind of the precursor to the Patriot Act stuff. But even that aside, a lot of people forget about that, and they're kind of like, and then so it's like, oh, well, they're trying to get rid of the papers. It's kind of almost like this easy. And you're like, no, I mean, if you understand the basic concept of strategy attention, you don't need a specific direct action. It's literally just a moving the dial in that way, and then that makes it so people are you're more able to get through certain actions. The populace is more ready to rush into the arms of the security state. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to, so like the idea of like having this perfect, they might have things ready in place, but those things may or may not go through. It may have to go around the next round or whatever.
Right. Well, and also consider the notion that, and I could definitely believe where this, and I looked at what Uncle Ted had said earlier, and basically it was something to the effect of this was a kind of modern Gladio a greenlit operation for the necessary cover up in terms of just the overall scope of what Iran-Contra truly was, because clearly it was far more than just Iran-Contra. It's just kind of the nameplate it's received. But I just was considering the notion that if you already have a domestic Gladio operation that you're ready to and kind of lying in wait to greenlight, then why wouldn't you just move those files to the very building where the operation would go off? I mean, that just kind of makes sense. So it feels like the nature of a domestic Gladio operation,
100%.
In every way. So I wouldn't at all be surprised.
And one last thing to address Uncle Ted in the chat, which I'd say you should call in. But he says like this, every OKC researcher gives all these details that when you ask why, they all throw their hands up and say, I don't know, and gloss over all the CIA involved in OKC, which wasn't in Waco or Ruby Ridge, which, I don't know, we've kind of talked about a little bit. I don't even think that's entirely true. I think CIA may have been a little bit involved in there. We've talked about that. But I definitely don't breeze over that. And I don't know I think I saw you said something in there earlier that Wendy only covered it like 3 times her book. I find that a little bit unbelievable that she only mentioned the CIA 3 times, but perhaps that's the case. But I would say, especially when it comes to OKC, if you're talking about the CIA, and especially if you're a researcher, if you're someone who's like, I'm putting things on paper that, for one, I could get sued for, and 2, I actually want to make sure that this is accurate so that I do a good job in representing the community and give a good building base for people to build off of, then I totally get why you wouldn't get in over your skis and start just making pure speculation. Because, don't get me wrong, I think the CIA stuff is almost entirely backed up by pattern recognition. So, like, you can mention it, but, developing some sort of, even speculating too much in a research book may come off as wild. And let's be real, Operation the Heart Real was already going pretty wild. It was already pretty wild to be like, implying all the PAC-on stuff. So there is stuff you can get them dead to rights on with PAC-on. So I can totally get why a researcher that's already writing a goddamn tome on the matter would maybe be a little bit less apt to put things in their book that's maybe not as dead to rights as some other information is, which tend to be, that is unfortunately when it comes to CIA, 99 times out of 100, that's going to be the case, is that they're going to be operating in such a manner to whereas it's like you can't really just be publishing that shit in books because, for one, they may make you look foolish later with some sort of disinfo campaign that, if you're basing your information off of on weak ground, or they could just fucking sue you or whatever, keep your book from being published. I mean, there's the famous example of I think you've brought up in a few of your videos. What was it, the cult of the CIA or whatever? I forget the name of the book. You probably recall that,
CIA
where they literally
and cult of intelligence.
Yeah, where they like literally cut out a shit ton of that book, and even then it was like, you know, I don't know what exactly they pulled from there, but like, you know, if you're doing anything borderline, like, you know, they could get you for libel or whatever the hell. Yeah, and also even just building off of. I mean, I totally get where they come from. Now, I will say, yeah, there's plenty of CIA stuff. You look at fucking, was it Holloway worked for, what was it, Ever? I don't want to get over my skis. He worked for some CIA cutout fucking as a pilot. I forget the specific one. You know, there's so much. There's
CIA basically whisked Strassmeyer away and out of the country after he receives this glowing media interview. Just fascinating. At a CIA safe house of all places, obviously. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt the CIA was directly heavily involved in OKC, and you know, they all can't be Dave McGowan, right? That as he's calling for F that, go full Dave McGowan. I'm with you, buddy. I always prefer McGowan's style. Over,
I will say, I like McGowan. It is fun, but it is a little bit of a bummer that I do wish he had cited his sources a lot better. Like, cause
there are moments,
I would say that,
sure, where I'm definitely frustrated, but you have to go elsewhere, and you seemingly can find them, you know, in terms of a lot of the evidence that he points to, and it really serves more as a kind of a gateway in a way to that of the schizo mentality and psychology that we all should be very proud of, at least constructing, and over time, you know, just due to our level of commitment to some of these cases, you know. But that's really just kind of a consequence of overexposing yourself to details, I think, in more ways than one, because that is where the pattern recognition kind of forms. But as far as the J6 pipe bomber story, though, there's still one other thing I thought was funny, was that there are all these stories alleging that, and accusations that effectively he was Antifa affiliated, and it was Pelosi who specifically hired him. And which is hilarious to me, but hey, I'm not saying that it's not possible, because obviously he allegedly plants the pipe bombs right around Pelosi.
Is Antifa the new Cubans, Austin?
Dude, I think so. At this point,
I was just thinking that, because they're not to linger on Uncle Ted more, but he said, who made coke boats for the CIA? To be fair, you're referring to Roger Moore. And to be fair, I think, if I recall correctly, where Wendy's book dropped, I think some of the more dead to right Roger Moore stuff may have came out later after the publishing. But so I don't recall what all was included in there. But yes, Roger Moore was making coke boats for the CIA, working for civilian material assistance, supplying weapons to the fucking Cubans, exiles, and all sorts of shit like that. Purportedly, if I recall correctly, from McVeigh himself had some sort of claim of meeting with Cuban exiles in like the swamplands or some shit like that.
Oh man, that's just right up the alley of that of the Hand of Death cult and Henry Lee Lucas, you know, who's like, yeah, no, we all were instructed strategically on how to evade, you know, these overhead flights from, you know, these various authorities, and that would basically fly over the area of where some of these domestic black sites were located, and so they were all very well aware of how to kind of disguise the location from the air. But it's interesting, though, that the individual, obviously the J6 bomber, was also from Virginia, right? Because again, this is allegedly where the CIA black site was, where Omar Mateen and James Wesley Howell and Micah Xavier Johnson and Michael Sanford were all strategically trained up by these, you know, modern Gladio operatives of the CIA, and even implicated, it was James Wesley Howell who claimed under interrogation before the feds intervened and threw all the local investigators off the case, he had claimed that he had witnessed Hillary Clinton and Uma Abedin at this very domestic black site while they were receiving their training in terms of weapons training and various other explosives training, things of that nature. And he even mentioned the make and model of Michael Sanford's vehicle, right? Who's the individual who was from the UK and on the spectrum and here on a visa and went to Vegas to grab the service revolver of one of the individual law enforcement assets working security at the Donald Trump campaign event at one of the major casinos in an attempt to commit an assassination in broad daylight, which again plays perfectly into that of which I had mentioned prior to all of this in terms of Columbine and that crazy blackjack pizza delivery driver who was an adult and also a friend of Dylan and Eric leading up to Columbine, who in 2008 then goes to the Democratic National Convention in Denver, Colorado, and effectively gets implicated and arrested and apprehended and convicted on an assassination plot for Barack Obama. And so, again, it's like it does seem that they have layered operations and they have these strategic assets kind of hanging in the wind to essentially utilize at any moment. But 5 years after, as far as this pipe bomb story, and no new evidence presented. Dan Bongino, what are you doing, my friend? Maybe the rumors are true. Maybe he is going to be removed here in the near future, and we could see a sort of restructuring of the current kind of patsies and political actors in place in charge of these federal organizations, which obviously have nothing to do with our best interest. But yeah, I'm very skeptical of all this.
I think they're going to play the dialectical game further, because I don't know if we mentioned it, but the claim was that this was information that they had sitting there since the Biden administration.
Yeah.
So that once again, this dialectical whiplash. So we have this, now this other dynamic of, now we're going to swap over to blame it on the Biden thing, and so then you can create whatever, squeeze out whatever little bit of division and dialectical, kind of paradigm we can out of that, and also kind of get this ineffectual, we've been getting, I haven't even been covering these on the morning show really. I have a bunch of these bookmarked, but never even do it. Obama did treason and Clapper did treason, and we totally proved it.
Comey's going
to prison. I don't even cover this shit anymore because it's no, they're not. No, they're not. Do it, and then I'll be like, oh shit, okay. But until then, shut the fuck up. And I think we're just gonna get another one of those of ooh, Biden administration been sued on this. Were they gonna get some of the Biden administration? And maybe if you get enough uproar from the people, maybe you'll get some staffer or somebody that gets thrown under the bus. But no one of import is going to get in any sort of trouble whatsoever, and probably absolutely nothing will happen of any of this, exactly. At least in that regard.
And by the way, you saw the Gateway pundit, who was one of the usual suspects running with that original J6 perpetrator story regarding that individual Capitol Police officer and actually naming her and things of that nature. They were kind of reinforcing that of Seraphin and Mike Baker and people to that effect, obviously. And
Massey's running with his shit again too.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. It's whatever.
Again,
I mean,
yeah, he's further. He is. He couldn't be doing any better in terms of kind of further reinforcing those very skeptical notions I had in my mind's eye in terms of his
You're making me
level
schizophrenic, Tommy.
He feels like he's compromised. But I will say that it was the Gateway pundit of all publications who ran with this narrative. Biden's FBI knew Brian Cole was the January 6th pipe bomber in April of 2021. So, take it for what it is. And at this point, it just feels like very much political theater. And each side of the aisle sort of gets what they want out of this. And hey, a perpetrator was taken into custody. So the Trump administration can deflect and claim that they weren't necessarily helping and aiding a cover-up in terms of J6, which clearly doesn't apply as if you have any kind of context as far as Trump and his dealing with the J6 protesters. It feels like obviously we had that brief moment that we kind of took a small victory lap because many were released and things of that nature, but just after his election. But still, it wasn't. It very much was not anything that he had promised as far as his campaign promises, and even then, the language and kind of his lack of defending any of those very same individuals who were kind of in solitary, isolation and solitary confinement and being essentially tortured to a certain extent.
You want to hear some shit on that? I don't know if this is where you're leading with it, but kind of you're alluding to the J6 prisoners that Trump left just sitting, hanging in the wind, and then he did then, early in this administration, blanket pardoned basically. I forget it was anyone vaguely to do with J6. I don't know if this is where you're going with it, but that's apparently with this Cole thing. I guess there's legal murmurings that perhaps this could actually be used as a legal defense. So here we are again, like he literally leaves them out, hung them out to dry, and after basically probably damn near most of them were probably, let's be real, getting ready to be let out anyways or whatever, then ta-da, you're out, and then really it literally flies in the and then the person who probably maybe have contributed to this very well could get off scot-free, and it may not even be the guy. Even on top of all of that, it may not even be the guy, and he could still get the pardon, and then it just is this oh, just kidding, we're never gonna do it. I don't know, maybe they could. I don't know if they're gonna go that route. That would seem to be an incredible level of spitting in our mouth and saying, call me daddy and you love me. That seems but I don't know. They're kind of at that point with this administration where they are just spitting in our mouth and going, "Call me daddy and tell me you love me." And more and more people aren't really. I feel like more and more people aren't loving it. But unfortunately, there's enough of people that go smile and go, "Okay, yeah, I love you, daddy," to keep this thing going.
Always. And we were just talking about Roger Moore and Iran-Contra and OKC and the CIA and all of this. I just saw a few days back, there was this insane connection to an ex-DEA agent who was charged with apparently laundering millions of dollars for these Mexican cartels as a CIA asset. Mm-hmm. So, hey, there we go again, everyone. Cartel land is alive and well, and Iran-Contra never ended. And why on earth would we not have strategically utilized the cartels in Mexico and various other geographical areas as well? For
we're blatantly doing it in all sorts of different states. We released that Honduran guy. Who was it? Was it El Salvador? I can't remember. I mix up all the different. There's another literal narco state that we were trying to set up another election there. I think it fell through, and Trump was a little bit bummed about it. But that was a guy who literally has CIA and Mossad constantly working as security details, helping him cart drugs and all sorts, literal narco terrorist state. But it has our protection, in many such cases. But yet Venezuela, we're gonna. If you're swimming off, if you're in a boat off the coast of Venezuela, fucking beware.
Yeah. And this was not some just low-level CIA asset. This was a former longtime drug enforcement administrative agent who rose to help oversee the agency's financial operations. And he was the individual who was charged with agreeing to launder millions of dollars in narcotics proceeds for a Mexican drug cartel. And so, I don't know, man. Paul Campo is his name, 61 years old, and it was 25 years at the DEA. So, it looks as if he, along with a few other high-level officials that were also effectively, running these operations. I think so many of them are kind of a joint venture in terms of the layered operational accountability of the certain agencies and what they will help provide on the ground, and even through facilitating, the operation in certain ways. It's never one single agency and federal organization that is entirely implicated and standing alone as the criminal entity responsible for the entire operation. I feel like it's the same way in terms of the international landscape of how the network kind of functions and operates. This is not, again, I addressed that in Kinkora, I think was the episode that I addressed it, basically saying there was really no distinction in terms of intelligence, internationally speaking, between the CIA, French and British intelligence, Mossad. I mean, I don't see much difference. I feel like there is without a doubt, an overlapping agenda that is being pursued. And they seem to very well, in terms of their coexisting nature, they seem to never really find themselves except for the low-hanging fruit as far as the media presentation of so much of the scandals. They would like us to believe, right, that reality is far more black and white, and the black hats and the white hats are kind of this cartoonish, naive version of the power paradigm. But it never fundamentally plays out that way. And if you expose yourself to those details, then you realize that much, and so it's always difficult to kind of let's just say, I don't know, effectively isolate the one single entity that is right, the cause for the current state of reality in our dystopian kind of totalitarian tiptoes, I've said many times. But yeah, this is the way of the world. The cartels are the CIA's kind of brainchild, and I would think, and just like organized crime syndicates that are very let's say well established and kind of just in terms of their systematic entrenchment at this point, they're utilized for plausible deniability, which is always the case, and they seem to only really run misdirection in terms of the public perception of so many of these operations. And so therefore the federal government can essentially save face, but in reality they're holding hands in terms of the operation itself and how it comes to fruition. So there's no real distinction for me, and this really kind of proved itself in terms of Watergate and the Columbia Plaza prostitution operation. I mean, come on, Heidi Reichen's like, no, I have full protection by the CIA, right, as she's running this brothel on behalf of a prostitution pipeline to the DNC on behalf of Joe Nesline, a major organized crime, personality and prominent, individual in DC who was allegedly the fixer for the organized crime syndicate and that of the intelligence apparatus. So I don't see this as anything new, right? Yeah. And but anyway,
have you seen the Epstein images, the new ones that released recently? I don't know why. Something about that made me think of that. Like, do you see like the dental chair room they had and stuff like that? And even kind of the panoramic, like there was a video I saw of them kind of. And it kind of makes you think it literally is this weird, almost idyllic island, but with this like a Dionysian type of feel, if that makes sense. Maybe a little bit of a Gilded Age type aesthetic with that like white, which is ironic because it was like there's been multiple people I've seen that have pointed out, like with this new what West Wing, I think, I forget the wings or whatever of the White House, the new thing he's building out, and like the decor there is like, if you look at it, I honestly like the aesthetic is just bang on exactly like the Epstein aesthetic, which is kind of wild, which whatever. I mean, people have similar aesthetics, I guess, but and then you kind of throw all these things together. You look at these images and you're like, oof. And I mean, and we talked about what the other day about how like these chains of islands, like these come from antiquity, from the slave trade. Like the largest slave trader at that time bought those islands. And now here we have, generations later, we have Epstein on this island trafficking children and, I don't know, probably older people and doing God knows what. I mean, there are dental chairs with masks hanging on the wall as one of their rooms. Like the most like weird bondage type porn shit you can think of. Like literally this is examples you think of when people talk about MK Ultra and the sort of things they're doing where they would, do sort of like sexual or SRA type stuff, sexual ritual abuse, where they're, doing crazy things like wearing clown masks or just because it's such a, think about the idea of getting raped by fucking the Mickey Mouse gang or something. Like,
that's what we were just talking about that the other day as far as the finder's masks. I can't remember. Maybe that was on whatever this is now, but I can't remember now. But at the same time, it still applies perfectly because it's essentially they were wearing masks of Disney characters. They were terrifying, to be honest. They weren't, entirely perfectly accurate to that of a direct, representation and reflection of the character. Especially not in its kind of most endearing form. But at the same time, they were wearing the mass of these Disney characters when they were effectively raping these young child victims. And so again, apparently this plays a part in terms of the dissociative identity disorder. And by the way, mentioning that of Project Monarch and Ron Patton, he basically said in that essay that there were gatekeepers that are implemented in terms of the alters, right? And so this is how these specific alters can be triggered in throughout, as far as just the by the mind control operatives, right, who have effectively implemented this version of unique brand or programming, and so essentially, what they would do is they would have gatekeepers installed in the subconscious mind at these various levels of the layered programming. And this is triggered specifically for various personalities they wanted on display by the child victims. And what Ron Patton claimed is that these gatekeepers were potentially could be interpreted and have been in the past by, different individuals who allegedly were credible. But still, the notion being that the gatekeepers truly could have actually represented some sort of demonic possession that was being, utilized in this context, which I found interesting, just as far as the level of mind control and just as far as the unique programming that they utilize in the layers of the dissociative identity disorder, the alters themselves having hundreds of personalities in your, subconscious mind you're unaware of in your general state of free will, allegedly. Until this certain triggered formula, which they rely upon. I think they've probably evolved and sophisticated this technique by now in more ways than we could imagine. But at least I always use the Sirhan example of, it's overwhelming your sensory input by applying a scent, so a specific scented perfume. Now that came up in Blink Twice, right? That Channing Tatum film, which man, I just realized
one of the strongest memory recallers is smell.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, honestly. So if you overwhelm that sensory input to that extent, and you basically have a specific scent attached to layers of the programming, and then you also have a trigger phrase that will help kind of instantly bring the individual into this dissociative state and begin the original trigger of the first layer of the programming. And then basically they touch them as well, which is what Elaine Neal allegedly did to Sirhan, which is woman in a polka dot dress. Okay, so you have the visual component. She's wearing this white dress with black polka dots. And then you also have the perfume, and then you have the touch, and she whispers something in his ear. And before that, all he could remember is coffee, right? And so my attention instantly went to just the notion, okay, well, that could have been the chemical recipe required to kind of at least scratch a little bit below that surface into that first layer of programming. Who knows? Yeah. I'm speculating at this point. I find it fascinating, but the only reason I'm sorry, when you brought up the mass, I thought of Podesta. The Podesta art collection really is what I thought of, because there's so much in the Podesta artwork. The Arch of Hysteria, that large structure at the top of his stairs, which is basically was the key display in his art collection. It's insane, but it truly does perfectly represent and reflect the arranged poses of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims, right, with the severed heads included, and right beyond the level of victim artwork that was collected, which they claimed that Biljana Đurđević or something to that effect was one of I think she's alleged to have been one of Podesta's victims, and basically she suffered. Tragically suffered from DID just based on her prior level of traumatic abuse and sexual abuse that she had endured. And he made a point to specifically collect all of her artwork. And it does feel like this could have been maybe trophies at a certain level, if you think of like maybe even a Dexter parallel there to keeping trophies of your victims, which we know happens. But anyway.
Yeah, I did want to kind of, as we were talking about this a little bit of DID, not to make this too touchy-feely, but I actually, I'd be curious from people in the chat if you guys have similar experiences, but I feel like I've kind of it's sort of what we were clawing at a little bit. I've sort of experienced that, that like kind of we were getting at these scents, these feels, how they kind of bring on these. I know for me growing up, I don't know about Austin, your past, if you had any sort of trauma growing up. And I feel almost gay bringing this up because I don't really know of any particular. But my when I was growing up, my mom and dad got divorced when I was like really little, when I was like a baby. And so then my mom, not too much long after, we had my sister and was with this other guy who ended up being abusive, and he was kind of the jock, bully, retard type, kind of the wrestler, kind of really got off on being a tough guy type thing, and he beat my mom. I mean, so this was now my dad, I remember at the time swore. He's told me before, I'd sometimes come home with bruises. I was pretty young at this point in time. I don't know, maybe like somewhere in the 5 to 8 range. I forget exactly how old. But I don't really remember much of that time. I do remember vaguely my mother being in a net cast for a little while. So I don't really remember any of that stuff. My father swore I came home with bruises, and he was upset about it, came to his place. And my mom swears he never touches me. So I don't know, maybe there's some guilt there. Maybe he didn't. Maybe it was just he hit her. But I will say, like basically all the way up until probably well into my early 20s, I had to where like anytime, specifically pine smells or certain pitches of pine, certain specific smells of pine, and then also styrofoam, and then there's certain other textures that would honestly bring on this like almost like a where I'd be like kind of in a weird state. It almost would be like I was hearing a voice, but not quite. It was almost like there was a voice clawing at there, if that makes sense. And it was almost like this negative internal, like, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's just the echoes of the screams or whatever from my youth. I don't know what it was. I could never put a place on it. But that right there, I experienced that myself. I always thought that was pretty interesting. As I got older, it did. I don't really I can't recall in the past decade this ever happening, particularly in my early 20s. I still had an issue. I don't know. I know I did end up having to like confront him in my, mid to late 20s. I forget when it was. My sister ended up getting married, and I went to her wedding, and he showed up there, and I basically got the opportunity to tell him to fuck off. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe that was the moment to where like I felt better after that. I know I did end up getting drunk and making an ass of myself that night, but I was in a kind of a weird emotional space because it was like, this is now I'm a full, kind of came full circle. I'm a man, and he's kind of a pathetic old man at this point in time. And, I could literally pulverize him into the fucking dust, and here he is in front of me. And I don't know, something about that moment. I don't know, maybe that moment helped resolve that, or maybe it was just time, did its effect. But either way, it is real. And I do really feel like if I extrapolate that feeling out, I mean, that is kind of exactly what we're describing, really.
100%.
So I don't know if you have anything there, but that was maybe you had a great past. I don't know, but no, I always thought that was weird.
Right. I definitely, I can't recall any. I'm very blessed as far as my personal experience as a child, but I think I had a very stable kind of, at least for my very young years, the household was very stable, and I think naive at a certain level, but it's because they are good people, right? that kind of thing. But I love my parents, and I'm very blessed as far as that's concerned, and my stepdad as well as far, and my stepmom now too. So honestly, I've been very lucky. But I will say that the abuse on a prepubescent child who hasn't developed a legitimate, conscious, frontal cortex. I mean, so many different things, right?
Yeah. How do you conceptualize that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then also the only way you would is to probably, find within the recesses of your subconscious mind, a place for it that, maybe that is why so many of these young victims who were abused as children effectively had to, kind of remember their abuse and right. And kind of root out those core memories of what they had hidden from themselves to almost, it's a defense mechanism. I feel like psychologically, a fight or flight in that moment. And that's what I think they utilize the mask for, because you can't even clearly identify your perpetrator, and also the facial expressions during the act. I think that matters when they're masked and you can't see exactly that human effect. And I don't know, it's something's missing there. It's strange how it's utilized and strategically. But I will say that the Epstein connection, though, did you see that crazy report about the FBI paying around $1 million in overtime for the redactions of the Epstein files? I was like, hey, that's our taxpayer dollars, baby. You know, like it's just so ridiculous.
We got a $1 trillion military budget too, and they snuck in the NDAA or the NDA or whatever the hell it's called in there. They snuck in provisions to prevent us cutting back any of the Israel stuff. So many such cases every single time. Austin, you think you ready to go to intermission, and then we can come back?
I just think that the two things we could perfectly segue from this specific subject into that I was kind of prepared to discuss was basically this insane lawsuit that was brought about in regard to against Trump. Allegedly, it's over $310 million, claiming that he was running a sex trafficking operation, specifically citing individual perpetrators and things of that nature. So we can discuss that, and that would bridge perfectly into one of the other stories I thought was extraordinary if we get to it. Which is that insane scandal in Australia of these four individuals who were basically at the end of a kind of federal law enforcement raid that basically identified that these four perpetrators essentially were running. At least one of them, I think, was 26 years old. Was the individual who was allegedly running this sex trafficking operation, but we're talking satanic ritual abuse. I mean, it fits the profile of so many different things that we've covered in the past. And what I really thought of was that of Marc Dutroux, as always, unfortunately. So anyway, if you're
speaking
interested,
of, we're getting ready to do another part of that for those, part 6 or 7, I think.
Yeah.
And we still haven't gotten to the normal part that people cover. Which I'm happy about. That's not a complaint. I think, if anything, I keep mentioning that because I'm bragging.
It looks like Esoteric Principles of Light said that NLP technique of abuse made its way into the PUA community through the book The Game. That's interesting. I mean, I definitely believe NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is so much still actively in use and relied upon as far as post-hypnotic suggestion and various elements of this strategic, sophisticated method. I think NLP is exactly what James Holmes claimed to have been a victim of in regard to Stephen Unruh, right? That individual who he was allegedly in booking right in a holding cell, and was next to James Holmes' holding cell before he was moved. And he made these confessions to him after he was like screaming and in pain and trying to slam his head into the cell wall and things of that nature. But anyway, we'll get into it.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's go to intermission. If you want to call in, dang it, you took down the banner. I was going to read it. All right, 1-833-722-3323. No, you're good. I was just messing with you, Jacob. You guys can call in after the intermission or call during the intermission. It'll just put you on hold. But the patrons get the exclusive ability to come in via video chat. I see a few of y'all back there. Please feel free to join in. I'd love to talk to you guys. But they can field calls with us, ask their own questions, whatever. We like to make this a little more audience interaction, but we have a parallel Epstein-esque story to dig into after the intermission, so hang with us. We'll be back in a bit. Love you all. Watch this beautiful bean footage.
Those who wish to donate their body to science with medical research and education facilities.
Turns out the donation was just the beginning.
The owner accused of selling bodies and body parts. A trial set to begin in just months. And tonight, new grisly details of what the FBI says really happened.
ABC 15's
the kind of story that will bring holiday cheer.
But tonight, hundreds of families probably had no idea their loved ones and their bodies were cut up, sold, and yes, even rented out of this shabby warehouse in Detroit. Only on 7 tonight, investigator Jim Kurtzner shows us how the case is building from Detroit.
The owner Why were you stockpiling hundreds of human body parts here, sir? Art Rathburn is not in custody and not charged with a crime. We'll come back to him in a minute. The feds gave him back his business on Friday the 13th. Sources say inside it was a house of horrors, a human parts warehouse, arms, legs, heads of an estimated 1,000 different people. It took 3 days for the feds to remove them all, wearing hazmat suits with masks. In fact, this week, when 7 Action News asked state licensing officials about an on-site inspection, we were told the buying and selling of human remains is under the state health department. But a spokesperson for that department says that's not the case. So there is no indication the state ever inspected this shabby warehouse. State officials now say they have an open investigation. The center was Rathburn buying corpses out the back door of funeral homes, crematoriums, and willed body donation programs. There is a high demand and a lucrative black market. Body parts are used in anatomy classes, practicing medical and dental procedures, and in some cases, tissue transplant into live people. Sources say both are part of the Rathburn case. The bodies inside his Detroit warehouse, sources say, were kept on ice, not embalmed, to keep them fresh for the market. Sources say Rathburn did business outside of Michigan and outside of the United States, shipping his body parts through airlines cargo out here at Detroit Metro Airport. The other question investigators are putting together who may have worked with Rathburn. He advertised his business on the internet as International Biological.
In 2014, the FBI raided the Phoenix facility in hazmat suits as part of a multi-state investigation into the illegal trafficking and sale of human body parts. But for the first time, we're now able to see the testimony from one of the FBI agents who conducted. He found a cooler filled with male genitalia, a bucket of heads, arms, and legs, infected heads, and one of the most disturbing findings, called a morbid joke in the lawsuit, a small woman's head sewn onto a large male torso like Frankenstein and hung up on the wall.
The investigation of a business deal that deals in human body parts shipping from Detroit to Chicago as the feds launch a new raid.
And once again, hundreds of families will be left wondering if the bodies of loved ones have been bought and sold on the black market.
7 Action News investigator Jim Kirkland here tonight with the story you'll see only 7 Jim.
Stephen and Carolyn, this case started here, according to sources, when a man named Arthur Rathburn was shipping human body parts through Metro Airport. Get this, the box leaked blood. Those cargo haulers then called for help. Today, the rundown warehouse on Detroit's east side is shuttered and up for sale. Sources say Rathburn's seized records led them to the Chicago area today, a business called Biological Resource Center in Rosemont. It's difficult to see from the outside, but sources say the hazmat suits and raid are underway on the 6th floor of this office building. The same paper trail led investigators to Biological Resource Center in Phoenix last January, and another raid removing body parts and corpses. There were also ties to similar businesses in Las Vegas.
We have shit for poor people. Who buys our shit? I don't buy every products barely anymore. It's so healthy. Now that I know what the in it, even in a can of soup, I look at it, look at meat, bioengineered meat. I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer. You
to see the mysteries that lay inside. How do you solve the cost of living crisis with engineered human meat? It sounds like magic. And this is where the magic happens. The Good Harvest processing plant has been up and running for over 8 months. It contains both industrial and clinical operations on a site the size of 4 football pitches. You'll see everything. Oh, you will. Mick Ross oversees the production line and is in charge of over 60 full-time staff who engineer roughly 50,000 steaks every day. So come on then, Mick. How on earth do you grow human meat?
I want to introduce you to our nutrient vat.
Hello, nutrient vat, Greg Wise, telepresenter, and your job is?
Well, what its job is, it processes thin slices of tissue in a nutrient-rich mix, which you see here, and then cells start to grow. So over a 24-hour period, these will slowly fuse together into one great big, what we call a cake.
So you're telling me that that is human flesh?
Exactly.
Hell yeah, let's get some ethically sourced human meat. Let's fucking do it.
Oh my God. That reminds me of the It's Always Sunny episode when Frank tries to convince Charlie and Dee that they ate human meat because they keep stealing all of his venison, basically. And then they start going around town trying to get samples of all these exotic meats. You guys got fucking monkey? Like, dude. But anyway, I think where we can really start though is basically that insane lawsuit that I was mentioning
100%.
because it mentions basically an 8-year.
Oh, real quick, Austin, before you jump into that, there's been an update in the Candace thing. She went live today. Apparently, she was really shook up. Apparently, the hitman has moved to her town.
Are you serious?
I don't know. I guess that is legit what she's claiming now. I obviously haven't looked into it at all, but what the fuck? All right.
That's so great. Hey, well,
who knows? Maybe this is what I've been saying, that her dropping receipts. Okay, drop some receipts. Maybe this is the beginning of it. I very much doubt it, and I'm starting to more and more doubt it every time this dumb shit happens. But who knows? Maybe this time.
Right. Don't you dare tell Tim Pool about that, man. He might not be able to recover.
He's gonna get fucking shot.
It's killing me. But yeah, what the allegations behind this lawsuit claim is that Trump, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates were effectively implicated in running an 8-year trafficking venture. So specifically, this sex ring that they're alleged to have been facilitating was specifically in this form, only active within this 8-year period, and that basically, as soon as Trump took power in the White House, it kind of, I don't know, just effectively provided it the very network that is being implicated here with kind of this a blank check in a certain sense. So I did find that interesting, just as far as that aspect of what is being alleged to have been a certain, I don't know, let's just say the strategic nature of assuming power when you're effectively running some sort of operation like this. But either way, so the details behind this is what I found to be most interesting, obviously, and that is that, and they describe it as a sex trafficking operation allegedly spearheaded by Jeffrey Epstein. So they're saying this identical in every material respect to what Jeffrey Epstein was running. But so I don't know how much of a distinction they're trying to draw between that of Epstein and this specific organization, which effectively probably just falls perfectly in line with the umbrella effect of the Epstein network. But either way, because clearly all three of those individuals who were named were perfectly, implicated in the Epstein files and every aspect of the connections that we've kind of drawn out in the past, in terms of just Roy Cohn and things of that nature, perfectly presenting us with kind of a framework as to how Trump has been very much coexisting in this very umbrella network that is now coming full circle and being publicly kind of exposed. But anyway, so it was filed on November 24th in Palm Beach County, and the lawsuit named Trump in both his individual and official capacity as president, alongside Tesla founder and Trump ally Elon Musk, Microsoft founder Bill Gates, both of whom obviously spent time at Epstein's home, which is a part of this. But the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, whose names were redacted, so we clearly have no as far as background on the details behind who is coming, at least who is actually filing this legal action, right? And who's kind of spearheading the allegations. None of that is being presented. So anyway, this is Trump and others are effectively operating an 8-year trafficking and exploitation venture that began in 2018, according to this lawsuit and the plaintiffs involved. And so it continued and escalated under the current Trump administration. And this is according to an uncertified copy of the lawsuit that was published by these various media publications, right? So again, we're relying on kind of, I don't know, I'm not really kind of, let's just say, fully confident in this entire case, yet, let's say, just as of yet, because I think we need a little bit more evidence to be provided. But at the very least, it looks like the plaintiffs accused Trump of grooming the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit, specifically an unnamed minor on whose behalf the lawsuit was filed starting in 1998, which is very strange because it happens to be the exact same year the plaintiff was born. So the only thing that I can think of where that would effectively apply is some sort of breeding experiment, right? In a certain sense. I mean, and by the way, someone had, oh my God, I just, during the break, I just read this crazy interesting comment about TWA Flight 800 that I had mentioned in the Columbine episode, where that a victim's advocate who was running that foundation, who was very much helping defend and publicly expose that of Paul Schultz, and Belinda Schultz is the victim of a breeding experiment from the Star Chamber and right in the White Eagle Underground, and that very network that implicated Michael Aquino and Lilith Aquino. Well, it turns out that flight that we very much already had known was clearly kind of, I don't know, seemingly a controlled, manufactured crisis, right? And because, again, it reminded me of Dorothy Hunt and in the plane crash that happened to have far too many individuals who were thorns in the side of the intelligence apparatus at that very moment, including Dorothy Hunt and a media representative who was helping make her story public. And she was acting as a pay mistress on behalf of the Watergate burglars at the time, obviously, kind of negotiating with that of the Nixon administration. But anyway, the point being is that it was very much brought down by design as far as that plane into a residential district. I think they just wanted to make sure that it was brought down before it made it to its final destination, clearly. But obviously, we had federal operatives who infiltrated the tower in the airport, right? Who essentially kind of impeded all of the status quo kind of routine operations in terms of the flight making it to its destination as well. So again, it's like at every level they kind of had they had a operational asset in place, let's say. But here, the point that I'm making, though, that I found to be worthwhile and just briefly mentioning is that
real quick, I did want to buttress your point. I think we talked about this maybe last week. I just wanted to quickly aside mention that there were emails from those email links seeming to allude to children and Epstein and a child, and seemingly joking about him being a father or something, which, who knows, maybe there's a weird glib inside joke or something, but given some of the stuff we know, right? Some of the Zorro Ranch creepiness and stuff, you're like, I think maybe, just maybe. And then even then, when you see weird shit like the way that bloodlines work, as creepy as it is, I mean, once you start looking, I mean, hell, we just found out, within like last week or so, for thanks to Dana Duda, that Candace is the daughter of someone who was managing the contracts for Sandy Hook. So.
Yeah, definitely had the cleanup security contract, which is very strange, right? And something Horizons, I think, was the name of the actual security company. That it's very, very interesting and definitely on his resume. But yeah, as far as this TWA Flight 800 is concerned, and by the way, those emails, right? That was between Jean-Luc Brunel and another individual, I believe, as well. And they were talking about, right, like purchasing baby clothes for an upcoming birth of some kind for one of Epstein's undocumented children, I would imagine. And by the way, how many Epsteins do we have running around? I'm very curious. And Nygaards to that effect. I feel like that probably applies in every single one of these networks. For
Nygaard, you just got to look for the light-skinned fellers.
Yeah. Yeah, man, prolific predators, and Don
Lemon's one of his.
Yeah, wasn't it Was it Bonnie Blue as well, who, by the way, just got she just got arrested in Indonesia?
Yeah, she was it was just wild because it was like I saw it the other day. It was literally like it was Indonesia, I think, which has like anti-porn laws, and she was doing the whole like bang bus like kind of public porn type thing. Which
soccer team from Indonesia, or
yeah, which I've always been blown away. How I mean, I don't know. I get it. Like I don't know. I mean, I've done some public stuff, even with the old lady back in the day and stuff, but it's like we didn't record it and be like, here you go, world, here's us breaking a law. Like, really? Right. So I've always wondered how that works. But pro tip, don't do that in Indonesia with a sign on top of your vehicle that says Indonesian bang bus or whatever the fuck it said.
He clearly has no legal advisors of any kind that at least were fulfilling their role. You got to know where you're at. Indonesia, like you can't. I think if you have you're caught with like weed, I think even they have like insane kind of consequences legally, criminally in terms of what they actively pursue and right and.
You're about to mention how she claimed she was Jimmy Savile's kid, right?
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to mention. Because again, it's like, hey, you never know, right?
Yeah. She claimed it, from my understanding. I mean, I haven't looked into it, so
who knows how much it was trying to, generate views or something.
Yeah,
you never know. But very strange thing to claim publicly. But yeah, before I forget. And then I'll finish the last remaining details on that new lawsuit regarding Trump. But this TWA Flight 800, I had someone hit me up who just listened to the Columbine episode and had heard that portion where I discuss this victim's advocate who effectively died on that plane crash, and she was helping again defend that of Belinda Schultz, who claims that she was chosen by the Star Chamber, right in the White Eagle Underground. To basically become a breeding experiment in order to give birth to the son of Paul Schultz, and due to her genealogy and her kind of genealogical background, this was the reason behind why they allegedly had the motive of choosing her specifically for this purpose, which they later had the plan to sacrifice her in a ritual, in some sort of occult death ritual, where allegedly Lilith Aquino would become Miss Lilla, is how the victim, Nicholas Schultz, the child victim, knew her. But he later identified her as Lilith Aquino, obviously, and she claimed she would become his stepmother, his new mother, whenever they sacrificed his actual, his actual biological mother, Belinda Schultz, after they sacrificed her in this death ritual. And so to me, I feel like this definitely reinforces so much of just, let's just say, the common playbook that many of these fundamental networks that abuse children kind of pursue at every level of their operation and enterprise. And so I wouldn't at all be shocked if that applies very much to that of the Epstein network, is all I'm saying, as far as these breeding experiments are concerned. And so who knows, that could very well help at least lend credibility to that of the allegation here in this lawsuit, claiming that Trump was grooming this child since birth in 1998 to be an abused child victim for sexual purposes. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's right up their alley as far as the strategic nature of the networks themselves. But this TWA Flight 800, it would be fun to actually do a real deep dive on this at a certain point, maybe bring it to Already Dead or something and do a segment on it. But because just at face value from what this individual listener claims, it's kind of amazing. And I already was fully skeptical of the plane crash. I just hadn't yet fully dove into kind of exposing myself to the details of the case specifically. But I do know that apparently it was blown up, this flight, right, strategically. And this is very interesting because it was like the number of individuals on the flight manifest that were very much kind of usual suspects in terms of dissident voices. It's very interesting and should never be accepted at face value. But again, it's very much that this was not a malfunction of the center wing fuel tank or whatever the hell the official narrative is, because it seems as if it was actually shot down with some sort of projectile. And so it looks like there was whistleblower testimony as well. And this is a Navy whistleblower that basically made these claims in a testimony. And there were over 200 eyewitnesses that reported seeing these launches and splashes next to the plane. And the Navy whistleblower says he was on a ship in the strike group that apparently shot it down. And this lead investigator, Hank Hughes, wasn't allowed to write an analysis, which he claims he would have fingered a hypersonic explosion from the exterior of the aircraft. So there was evidence stolen from the warehouse. There was even an instance where a junior FBI agent was caught banging on plane debris with a mallet at 3 a.m. So again, it looks like this was very much a controlled operation and
make it look like something else. They sent some idiot out there to be like with a fucking hammer to make it look like something that it's not. Yeah, I can see that.
Of the 50 feds who just were on the scene instantly at the crash site in the Dorothy Hunt circumstance.
Well, OKC, Terrence Yeeke, one of the things he said in his letter to Ramona McDonald was that how is it that they're there when I got, like, the moment I get there, essentially, we have them here already in riot gear, ready to roll. And I'm like, and Yeeke was one of the first people there. He's in damn near every report I've seen. It says he's the first one there within minutes because he just happened to be on the call nearby.
Eyewitnesses were saying they were there hours before the event took place, which is fascinating.
Yeah. Look up Depol Might, people out there. Operation or Project Depol Might. Yeah, the ATF was working with some sort of I don't know how they framed it, exercises on, truck bombs or something like that. I forget the specifics, but they were literally looking into that very thing at the time. I mean, how often is it we have a fucking exercise or whatever? I mean, it's like what's renowned, the 9/11 thing. We had which to be fair, I mean, I remember from my time in the military, we did weird exercises all the time, so it's not that crazy. It was constant, but not constant, maybe once a month, every other month or so. So it's not that crazy of occurrence. So they do some sort of exercise where we're, playing pretend war scenario. But the timing, it's kind of like every single time it kind of gets a little bit like, oh, what the fuck? But yeah, I mean, hell, we even have the guy, I forget his name. Was it Ricks? I forget the name of the guy, but one of the lead investigators for the FBI, he was there at the time. It was found out later that he was lying. He was in OKC at that time, like when the bomb went off. There was a receipt of a hotel that he was in at that time. So it looks like the guy who was literally probably the one leading up the PatCon operation, then had to swap and then be the guy running the fucking the investigation. So it's just kind of, which obviously that's speculation. We don't know. All we know is that it's awfully weird. You were in OKC at that time. No doubt. and you had multiple different alibis saying otherwise, and eventually kind of like, no, here's a receipt, doggy. And it's just kind of
that's so crazy. I know, but there were a few additional wrinkles in that lawsuit that was brought forward that very much reminded me of Dutroux as well, as far as certain kind of extraordinary details that they shouldn't just so perfectly overlap with all of these other very well established networks is the major point. But beyond the plaintiffs claiming that Trump was kind of guilty of this grooming process, right? At least in regard to one of the specific plaintiffs in the lawsuit that they're relying on, the allegations, but they accused Trump of using the Gates Foundation as the primary cover and silencing mechanism to continue the operation, as well as facilitating, quote, coordinated sexual assaults. That I found interesting. And then the plaintiffs alleged that the minor plaintiff's infant daughter was taken from her as a punishment for filing lawsuits, which they argue was identical to Epstein's use of custody threats against mothers who sued him. So it does seem to be kind of a part of the playbook as far as the cover-up, just manufacturing a cover-up in a certain sense. But then you have the plaintiffs accusing Trump and other, named defendants of having attempted to murder the lead plaintiff no fewer than on 5 separate occasions between 2023 and November of this year, including by way of poisoning, vehicular assaults, and orchestrated physical attacks designed to appear accidental. It's almost like they just listened to our Watergate series that we did, and they're legitimately checking every box as to how these, individual kind of intelligence assets typically function. And so again, no criminal charges are actively, as far as Trump himself is not facing any criminal charges as of now, because this is just kind of in its infancy in many ways. So we'll see how much more comes of this, and I'm very curious to see what additional details are provided is the main kind of takeaway. So yeah, that's just a major lawsuit, I will say, and at the very least $310 million. It's a huge payday, right? I mean, my God. Right.
By the way, here's Shadows in the Cornfield saying OKC witnesses were almost as good as they can get. Many were federal employees themselves, like Jane Graham and Ruth Schwab. That's a good reference there. For those who aren't aware, those are 2 separate people that gave 302s attesting to the fact that they saw people in the parking garage. Was it, I think, a day or 2 prior? Might even actually been a week prior. I don't remember exactly, but within the short period of time before the bombing, they saw people under there that they saw essentially looked like they were, I forget how they described it, particularly like wiring, blocks, but essentially kind of describing how someone who doesn't know what C4 looks like would describe C4 is what it sounds like.
That's so funny.
So whatever. There's one other where, and then Uncle Ted saying Jolly West protege from Oklahoma University was on site talking to witnesses also. You might have that actually incorrect, or it might be a both, because Jolly West was actually, and I believe that was actually in Wendy's book itself, if I recall correctly. Maybe I read that elsewhere. Maybe it was one of the other books, and maybe that's why you think Wendy's running cover for it. But I could have swore it was an aberration as well. But Jolly West was, from my recollection, on the ground, essentially assisting with trauma or something. I forget how it was framed, because that's his whole thing. But he was helping out witnesses on the ground, assisting the FBI in whatever way he could. Which, let's be real, he was probably using his techniques to manipulate things the way he wants to go. But there was the Jolly West protege that was on Timothy McVeigh's defense team. It goes on. But I guess let's shift over to the last topic, I think, for today, Austin. Actually, I got a fun little thing for you that'll kind of tie into it. I guess we'll show a little visual thing. See if you can't pick up on what they're setting down here, Austin. Here we go. We have here's a little video. It shows a Greyhound bus ticket was recovered from Luigi's pocket. It's dated for December 4th, 2024, Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, 6:30 something. Which so here's the realization.
Time to go. Me and the devil.
So yeah, for those who don't get where we're putting down here, that is the time of the killing. So it's funny. I already saw replies, and there are people being like, "I'm gonna buy a Greyhound bus ticket so I can kill my buddy or kill my neighbor or whatever." So to be fair, I don't know. This isn't a smoking bullet. I guess that would be. If you were going to kill someone at a time, it would totally make sense to just buy a Greyhound bus ticket. Although, I guess to be fair, you would be able to then... You would think that you wouldn't bother doing that, because then they would be able to verify via like cameras if that was the case. Like, your alibi is not going to hold. I feel like Greyhound bus stations probably have cameras everywhere, so that wouldn't be a great alibi if you're trying to prepare yourself. And I would think Luigi would be smarter than that. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll find video of this guy. I know you had something. You've dug into this a little bit. I have this bookmarked ready to go into the morning show. I hadn't really dug into it yet, but I've been hearing lots of murmurings that sounds like some legal fantasy work. That, oh no, they didn't read him his Miranda rights or some other, technicality that we hear about in movies and shows, and we go, oh, he's off now because you didn't do your due diligence or whatever, and, he got away with murder because you didn't say the magic words when you threw him in the cop car. What's going on with that?
It's very interesting because it seems like the kind of the window we're supposed to view this through is basically within 20 minutes they didn't read him his Miranda rights, and that is sort of typical, I would think, in many different arrest cases, as far as just a normal average, arrest would typically take at least 15 minutes before you actually take an individual into custody, unless you have, legitimate evidence that they've actively committed this crime or they're in the act of committing the crime, and would obviously be apprehended and detained in that moment, for that very reason. But the fact of the matter is, within that window of time, they basically kind of searched his backpack, right? And one of the arresting officers was a woman who just testified, I think yesterday, and basically said that she just reached in without even looking, apparently, when she first was kind of going through his things, and then and also they're making a very large deal over this 3D printed gun, which I find to be a priority as far as just an agenda of the permanent establishment, right? They would definitely like to phase out any ability we have to effectively arm ourselves privately, and kind of having an end around in terms of the legality of obtaining a weapon, things of that nature. They implicate him as I found it hilarious. There was a Fox News kind of report in regard to what was found in his backpack, and we'll discuss that because it was very strange. There's a red journal with a red ribbon that was allegedly the manifesto, and that in itself was kind of interesting. But I will say this is day 5, right, of this pretrial evidentiary hearing, and it is receiving quite the spotlight, it feels like, and the algorithmic priority in a way as well. Maybe that's just me personally, and I'm in an echo chamber, but it is definitely coming up very frequently. And there's even a report from a prison guard, by the way, which I found very interesting, who allegedly claimed that without even there was no interaction whatsoever to lead to Luigi just offering up this information, which he allegedly did with no prior interaction with the prison guard. He just tells him out and out and confesses to the fact that he had a 3D printed gun in his backpack, which I did find interesting, that he would kind of reinforce the credibility of the claim so openly and willingly and volunteer that information in that strange context. But yeah, so we have that. We'll get into, at least let me present what was in the backpack first, because I find that to be interesting. There's handwritten checklists and which I found one specific priority to be very strange, because this was day 2 of his to-do list when he prioritized what he called an intel check-in, which I thought was interesting, right?
Yeah. Right.
And, so you had very odd. So you had bullets wrapped in wet underwear found in Luigi's backpack following the arrest, and so this was testified to on Monday by a Pennsylvania cop, and so then you have Manhattan prosecutors unveiled notes apparently written by Luigi, and one included pluck eyebrows. And they even found the tweezers that he was allegedly going to use to pluck his eyebrows in his backpack, which I thought was funny. And by the way, there's many different people claiming that the eyebrows don't match as far as the alleged shooter, right, who was wearing the mask.
I saw like an analysis, and I think they showed that. I think it was like, so, I mean, you could think like, oh, well, the pluck the eyebrow would be too obscure. But I think they're actually saying the original guy, like, his are further apart, like, whereas his are like, he's got more of like a unibrow type thing going on. Because it does look like Luigi does look like a kind of guy, like, I think he does probably pluck for vanity. He's got some pretty nice eyebrows, but he's got those thick, bushy fuckers that he probably has like a unibrow. I wouldn't be surprised if he just let that sucker grow. He'd have probably like a unibrow. He looks like somebody that could have that. So the plucking is probably from that. But I've seen people point out that the other person's is like further apart because he does have these huge fucking honkers right here essentially, and it doesn't. And that's and I guess the original guy kind of had distinct ones, but not to the extent of this guy. So I still kind of call bullshit in the idea that they're like, yep, that's the guy. Some fucking McDonald's worker fucking sleuthed it. And it was like, I bet you that's the CIA shooter, despite the fact that I only saw his fucking eyebrows. Right.
The call itself, the girl laughs when when she calls in saying that he looks, he basically looks suspicious, and people are claiming he resembles that of the healthcare assassin, which
Was this a McDonald's? Was this a McDonald's?
Yeah, we have actually pulled the small clip from the little snippet that we've been allowed to.
Let's play that, but I do want to mention a little pattern recognition, which whatever. I guess these are very common fast food places, but obviously we have the Tyler Robinson Wendy thing, but less known thing
or something.
Yeah,
I think it was
Wendy's.
Burger King. No, it's Burger King. I remember because it tied perfectly into that of the No Kings, and there was something else that was happening at that very same moment.
Superman thing, because that was when the White House was playing off the Superman which is, I told you too. I don't know if you ever watched that Superman movie. Anyone's watched the most recent Superman movie, especially with the stuff going on at the time. If you want to get schizoed out about that whole Tyler Robinson thing and like predictive programming, yada yada yada. And if you're just like, oh, herder Superman, why are they leaning so hard on the Superman thing? Why is Trump branding himself as, well, if you understand, as above, so below inversionism and stuff, if you know the plot of, it is the most like parody level, like, Superman to the rescue, stopping Israel. It couldn't be more clear in the world. I mean, I guess you can make a case that the baddie is like some combination between either a Zelensky / Putin, depending on how your interpretation of it, mixed with a fucking Israel. But it's very it literally is like they have a captive people that they are genociding or getting ready to genocide. And the moment when they swoop into genocide, that's literally what it is. And it's like, who's Trump other than the person enabling the genocide? But I did want to mention in passing one more thing. We talked about McVeigh a lot today. He also had a similar thing. He had the McDonald's video. He had another McDonald's video, which was another thing that, funny enough, all of these kind of fall into the timing of this early stuff of like when the feds are trying to create their narrative, and boom, here's this super famous, one of the most famous, fast food places video, perfectly kind of falling in line. A lot of times, seemingly not actually matching up with the timeline in retrospect, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Same thing with McVeigh. There was that video of him, which come to find out, if I recall correctly, he's like perfectly dry in the video. Then you come to find out it was actually pouring rain actually at that time. So he should have been drenched. And so there's a whole lore, you get the minutia of how ridiculous it is. But it kind of tale as old as time. This thing happens over and over again. But anyways, I just thought it was worth mentioning before we moved on.
Oh, for sure. And people are correct in the chat. It was Dairy Queen, I believe, is where Tyler Robinson was at. But still, that Superman billboard perfectly being placed, as far as the picture from that Dairy Queen was perfectly timed, and especially considering that it was the White House account even that tweeted out the picture of Trump as Superman, right, which was just basically the poster for the movie art in a way that they were playing off of. But yeah, it's revelation of the method at a certain level. I feel like we're receiving in terms of these layered operations. But yeah, it reminds me of. Well, I don't want to get off base right now. I might as well present this video real quick. So, so I did find this hilarious because obviously we get to at least kind of hear the 911 call, and this will be just sort of an introductory video. It's like a minute long, and then we'll play the actual body cam footage of the arrest, right? Which is, it's kind of strange. It looks like they were very well aware of the situation they were involved in, like the arresting officers. It didn't seem like, I don't know, maybe I could be wrong. It just feels like they knew who they were going to apprehend at this McDonald's. That's what it felt like to me. And I will, at the very least, acknowledge the fact that the way in which this arresting officer, who was a woman who claimed that she didn't want to take the backpack back to police headquarters, as if and she mentioned a fellow officer who had apparently done this in the past, and he had brought back a backpack from an individual perpetrator who they had detained and apprehended and brought into custody, and he brought back to the police headquarters this backpack, which contained a bomb inside. And so basically they were under the impression that just as far as this specific, police department, they were very well aware of kind of, I don't know, this was the justification, let's just say, right? It was presented in court as far as the reason why she went through his backpack, but then to go through his backpack in such a kind of sloppy manner and stick her hand in blindly as in the way in which she did. That is very strange, especially considering that, she placed everything frantically back into the bag, right? And this is all within that time frame of him being read his Miranda rights. So this is where you're having the defense attorneys kind of latch on to the notion that everything in the backpack should be thrown out of court and not be allowed to be presented to the judge in terms of the actual official criminal trial. When it comes to the time, at least it could actually even lead to this entire case being thrown out, because obviously understanding that the authorities have identified this very 3D printed weapon as the actual weapon used in the killing. And so they're claiming, obviously, now in my mind, I think perfect opportunistic window to plant evidence as well. That's always in my mind's eye as far as a potential outcome and plausible, just as far as how you would provide a patsy. This could be again an opportunistic way to kind of hang an asset out to dry that you manufacture almost overnight, right? And who knows? But yeah, it does seem as if at the very least there's wiggle room in terms of the defense and what they have to present as far as what could and could not be thrown out. But yet it does seem as if it's a little sloppy in terms of, I think the judge and the prosecution will be able to kind of figure out a way to present the case to where this obviously doesn't want to. Well, just in terms of, I think it's very interesting as far as, the overall notion of what could potentially happen in terms of the outcome of this actual case going forward is mainly, I think, what they'll be able to achieve as far as the prosecution is prove that obviously this is a window of time where he's not effectively detained, but clearly they're having a conversation with him, and in their minds, they're claiming that after he passes off the fake ID, which he had 2 fake IDs, obviously, and that alone is very interesting. But let's just play this video first, and then I'll continue to present this strange, just as far as the newly surfacing details from the last couple of days.
This morning, accused killer Luigi Mangione returns to court, where he's coming face-to-face with the police officers who arrested him in a Pennsylvania McDonald's after a 5-day manhunt.
They're looking for a male about 5 feet 10 inches in height, cream-colored jacket, black mask, black gloves.
Newly released video shows what happened after Mangione allegedly gunned down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The suspect walks by the victim and appears to glance at him before turning and scampering away. Police said the suspect fled on a bike, hailed a taxi, and eventually hopped a bus. Officers testified they found this Greyhound ticket in Mangione's pocket under the name Sam Dawson. It's a second alias.
I will say that that cab one's 100% him. That's 100% him. That cab photo is 100%, but I don't know if that necessarily proves anything. Just because you found a photo of him somewhere, that doesn't mean it's him. But sorry, go on.
Right.
Prosecutors said Mangione used after allegedly showing this fake ID for a Mark Rosario.
I have a customer here that some other customers were suspicious of, that he looked like the CEO shooter from New York.
Customers at an Altoona McDonald's had noticed a young man eating breakfast in a corner seat.
Well, he has his beanie pulled down, so the only thing you can see is his eyebrows.
Altoona police dispatched
and they made
2
a positive
officers.
ID anyways.
Customers came to her, said there's a male in the store that looks like the NYC shooter.
Mangione's attorneys are now challenging what police retrieved from his backpack. One of the next witnesses is the officer who searched the bag, pulling out the alleged murder weapon and writings that prosecutors say point to motive. Another witness is the officer who found this pocket knife, zip ties, and a future to-do list. For today's date a year ago, the paper listed digital cam, hot meals, and water bottles. For the next day, the note said intel check-in and survival kit. This evidence suppression hearing is expected to last most of the week. George?
Okay, Aaron, thanks.
All right. So that obviously is really just kind of a bare introduction to what is sort of in a way, coming to at least coming to the surface in regard to this evidentiary hearing. But to finish what exactly they found, in his backpack, it's kind of strange and interesting because it was damp gray Hanes underwear in Mangione's bag that allegedly after he was busted at this McDonald's, and this was what Christy Wasser, an officer, had discovered, and she testified that when I opened it up, it was a magazine which was fully loaded. As cops pulled the bullets out of the bag, one officer could be heard saying, "Damn, dude, it's fucking him, 100%." So we'll watch the body cam. I love it. So Wasser testified about discovering what apparently this evidence that the suppression hearing, and this is what they're claiming, that this is a suppression hearing, and the prosecutor, the defense, is attempting to sensationalize the case or something, and so, but interestingly, it seems as if they go back through his belongings, and once they get him back to the police station, they find several of these notes, right? And one of them was a reminder for him to pluck his eyebrows, as I had mentioned, and then also listed several Ohio cities like Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, which were potential destinations, I guess, and were implicated on the bus pass, obviously, or the ticket, but. Photos later were released by the prosecutors, which showed all the contents of the backpack, right? And I'll pull that up real briefly just to show, and that included the very tweezers for the brow grooming task, obviously. But yeah, there was a hand-drawn map. What were you going to say?
I thought you were about to pull up something, so I was just going to mention something while you were pulling it up. My bad. I was just going to say this guy right here, Esoteric Principle of Light, is saying customers who lingered for more than 40 minutes were reported, studied his receipt timestamp. So I think what he's saying there is I don't know, maybe we could look at it if you look at the timestamp that he had been sitting there for 40 minutes, and maybe that's why he got called. I don't know. That makes it a little bit more believable, I guess, if it's somebody who'd been sitting there for which then that makes it even weirder. Why the fuck is he hanging out for almost an hour at McDonald's? Although is 40 minutes that long to really be at McDonald's? I don't know. If I was hanging out, just relaxing, playing on my phone, burning some time, 40 minutes doesn't seem that crazy.
On his
I feel
laptop,
over an hour would be where you'd report somebody for an odd amount of time. I don't know.
Yeah. He was on his laptop as well, so it's like almost kind of a Starbucks effect in a way. I mean, people go to
have food. Did he have food there? Did you see?
I mean, I didn't see it, but he did have a bag.
Food, then sure.
He had a bag that looked like it was a McDonald's bag. Huh. So I would have imagined he definitely was eating something, but.
Yeah, if he didn't buy anything, he was sitting there for 40 minutes. I can totally see why. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, but. Including in the contents of the bag was apparently a hand-drawn map of Pittsburgh, and so this included possible escape routes allegedly, and this is according to the prosecutors. But third to-do list.
Sorry, real quick, this guy pointed out he was handcuffed to the tune of "I'll be home for Christmas." I don't know if that's true, but maybe we're about to see it. Yeah, if he gets off before Christmas, that would be pretty wild. I mean, obviously, maybe it's just coincidence, but sorry, go on.
Yeah, it is strange to write a note about plucking your eyebrows. That is weird, to be honest. Who knows? Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't think just your normal routine of, kind of, I don't know, personal care would I don't know, just strange. But anyway, the point being that in his to-do list, he had this check Pittsburgh Red Eyes, noting to keep momentum, FBI slower overnight, was a quote he had written. And so then the gun allegedly used to execute the CEO of United Healthcare was Thompson, I believe was his name, right? But anyway, was this silencer and a red notebook that was also contained in which obviously was his manifesto, which were all found back at the police station whenever they went back through his belongings. But yeah, the red notebook with the red ribbon, who knows? It's just it's the apparent manifesto, but it definitely I don't know, something about the color red. It kind of appealed to me instantly, just understanding the sort of symbolic nature of like let's say the red slipper effect of child victims of mind control, monarch victims as well. So it's always on the table as far as just kind of like the plausible path of the potential manufactured Manchurian, right? And that's, you know, kind of my only I don't know, speculation there, just in terms of not only the Thailand ladyboy story in the shooting range, obviously we've talked about in the past, kind of fitting the pattern recognition, but also it could be this was potentially a rendezvous point, and even embedded in his subconscious programming at a certain level to arrive at this McDonald's and stay until he's apprehended. You never know, right? It could be sort of the Oswald effect of going to the movie theater. What was the name of that film? I always found it to be fascinating.
I don't remember the film, actually. I know he shot Tippett, but I don't remember the film that they watched. I can't recall that.
Man, something to do with war, I think. I can't remember, but it was very interesting. But either way, it didn't feel like it was anything but orchestrated, right? And especially considering what he yelled out as they apprehended him in the theater, and he wasn't even implicated as being the individual that they were looking for at that time. Obviously,
is that where he said he was a patsy, or was that later? I know
no, that was later.
Okay,
yeah, but yeah, it's honestly the Oswald story in every way. Just shouts a kind of manufactured false narrative, obviously, but anyway, he had to have been superhuman to be responsible for the mainstream narrative of things. But either way, so you have the murder weapon that's obviously discovered in his backpack. But yeah, let's watch the actual footage of him being detained, because it is interesting, and especially considering the way in which he kind of reacts, you know, or the lack thereof, I would say, in a way. We'll have to fast forward like a minute and 11 seconds or something because it's really just them driving in silence. There's no even like call into the report itself that's audible on the video of the body cam footage. But yeah, this is strange.
Do we got audio?
Yeah, I'm waiting for it. Yeah,
there we go.
It kicks in at this strange time.
Which makes it weird, because it makes you think they edited it and then cut off the audio before that, which I don't know, whatever.
Yes, sir. There you go. Can you put your mask down real quick for me? Yeah, sure. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. What's your name? Mark. What is it? Mark? Yes, sir. Mark what? Rosario. Someone called. They thought you were suspicious. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have your ID on you? Yeah, yes, sir. Thanks.
There's a bag right in front of him, by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
So nothing suspicious about this, in my opinion.
Player 6, 27-29 out of New Jersey. Romeo 6807 52100 07982. Should come back to a Mark Rosiano.
That's it.
Yeah, well, nothing suspicious there. I mean, just a dude sitting at his laptop. I mean, someone saying, like I said, the person said earlier was 40 minutes, but 40 minutes with food and a laptop on a McDonald's. I don't know. I mean, I would be fucking irate if the cops got called on me because I was sitting at a fast food place for less than an hour when I bought fucking food from them. Like,
for real.
Yeah, like, I'm not a go to your manager type guy, but like in this occasion, like, I'm gonna be fucking like, what an insane thing to do. Like, I don't know. I mean, I get the idea, like what he looks like, but off of eyebrows, that's insane. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe you could say I didn't check to see. I don't even know if he had the same exact attire that he was supposedly wearing or whatever. I don't think so. I think some of it was different. I think he had a similar jacket, I think, or something. I don't know. Either way, even if he did, though, the clothing he was wearing was so nondescript, and so, like, people wear that shit. I don't know, it was like a black jacket and, like, a cream hat or something. I forget. So it was nothing crazy that, like, I still just can't buy the narrative that some fucking lady at McDonald's was like, that's totally the guy. It just doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
You know, what's even crazier is that the arresting officer that goes through his bag, she testifies during cross-examination, I believe yesterday, maybe it was earlier today. I think it was yesterday. And she testifies that she turned her body camera off and put every item back into Luigi's backpack before anyone completed an actual inventory of those items. And some of those items were even put into the McDonald's bag by the police officers to be taken back to the police station. So that was a little bit strange, I felt like, just as far as how you would kind of, I don't know, the chain of custody, right? And you know, like, I don't know. It feels like there would be, I mean, obviously they have evidence bags, but that's when you're kind of going to an active crime scene, I guess, and you're attempting to, you know, process evidence in a certain sense. But this was a 19-year veteran of the department, this Wasser, this female officer, and she said when she was checking his bag, it was primarily for bombs, and that was what I was mentioning earlier, because this is after he was placed under arrest because she didn't want to pull a Moser, is what she claimed. And this was in reference to a former officer who once inadvertently brought a bomb back to the police station. So it looks like they had a clear and clean justification for that kind of action and process that the officer went through. But anyway, so Mangione's attorney basically pressed Wasser. And
real quick before we move on, I do want to once again bring it back to McVeigh, because I do want to highlight this parallel. Shadows of Cornfields is kind of like Trooper Charlie Hanger taking cover behind his car door when he pulled over Tim McVeigh. But not even that. I mean, it was something we found out later after the fact that there was actually footage removed that was cut from that. Just like that's why I kind of made note of it was odd that they cut out the audio, which whatever. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to hear their chatter. Maybe they were talking about inappropriate things, whatever. You know, there are reasons for it, but say with the Charlie Hanger footage, we found out later that was cut down to length. If you saw the full version of it, you would have seen a car pull up to stop to kind of like almost to check on the situation. I forget the description of the car, but that adds another dynamic, the idea of someone else checking in on him. So there's some weirdness. These things happen, and it's kind of like the little details that you just kind of take for granted. Later you come to find out, like, oh, what the fuck was going on here? And that's another one of them. That's another interesting little lore point, digging into the arrest of McVeigh. But yeah, and it was also too retarded. Like he had no fucking, I think it was for no license plate, you know, which like who the fuck's going to have no license plate, you know, trying to get away from the biggest crime of the decade. So, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. But I mean, obviously this evidence collection was not at all kind of by the book in any real sort of way, and that's what I believe the defense attorneys are kind of relying on, because obviously I think the goal here is to prohibit all of these items from being specifically brought up at trial, and so yeah, they're trying to even strategically bar several statements that have been made by various individual officers as well, and but it seems to have included what he had. Thousands of dollars and $100 bills on him at the time when he was hauled into custody as well, with a USB drive attached to a silver necklace. And I found that interesting. You know, what made that USB drive so special, you know, and you never know. But anyway, beyond that, he had even made some strange quip during the arrest, I guess. And he allegedly pumped his fist, according to one of the officers. It was really a misrepresentation in a way, right? To implicate guilt in a certain way. But
I imagined the Trump thing. I don't know. For some reason I imagined like that, like the Trump. I don't know. Like he did that, like kind of being stupid or something. I don't know.
Hey, you're not wrong, but I will say, you know, they were seemingly trying to kind of reinforce his guilt in a certain sense by some of these statements that they made. And I think one of the statements the cop testified to on this morning on Tuesday, I believe it's today. And he essentially claimed that it was outside the Pennsylvania arraignment. If you remember when that video went viral, where he's basically in shackles and being kind of, I don't know, just brought to his next destination during the arraignment hearing. And he mumbles, all of these people are here for a mass murderer. Wild. This is what a cop testified to on Tuesday. So the way that they tried to present this was that it was him kind of embracing the moniker of being a mass murderer, but obviously he killed one man. So I don't know, strange thing to do, but yeah, still it does seem, and here's at least a few pictures of what exactly they did find in his bag. And because obviously these to-do lists this was future to-do is what it was apparently written down as in his little notebook. But yeah, so this is a picture of his to-do list, and basically he had the hand-drawn map of the city, which I don't see. I guess that's the hand-drawn map.
Break cam continuity? That sounds like tracking cameras, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
3+ hours off cam, exit different methods. Okay, well, sounds like that's like calculating, like, you know, like maybe like off camera, the idea of like if you could just find somewhere to disappear to for a while, you're not on a camera. Right. I don't know. Sounds like he's kind of taking it into a pretty methodical type of thing. When you even see like what
Absolutely.
Looks like yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very strange, and obviously the destination cities were ideally, in his words, Columbus or Cincinnati. But yeah, beyond that, what was this? This was the pluck eyebrows note, which is kind of ridiculous. But it's hard to make out a little bit of some of the gibberish that he had written. 279 highway, but anyway, and then this is the USB on the necklace. Right, which is a little strange to have a thumb drive like this, and then the thousands of dollars that he had apparently in cash when he was arrested.
Different denominations. Although those are just a few different ones. I don't know.
Right, and then here I think here's the red manifesto with the red ribbon, and then you have the 3D printed weapon as well, which was used in the actual murder of Brian Thompson allegedly. And I think there might have been one other. No, that was it. But there is another brief video that I had saw a report this morning that I thought was worthwhile because it kind of it at least acknowledges the body cam footage and kind of attempts to at least report on the individual actions of the arresting officers to a certain extent, and we'll see what the mainstream media would like us to embrace as their plausible reporting and framework of the story.
With that breaking news, new revelations in the case against Luigi Mangione, the man accused of murdering a healthcare executive.
Prosecutors have just revealed this new police body camera video. They say it captures the arrest as it happened. This is actually when the officers are walking in to that McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Also, for the first time, we are seeing these pictures of what prosecutors say are notes written by Mangione. One of them is an alleged escape route. There are also photos you see there of the gun and the silencer that prosecutors believe were used to kill United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
All of that evidence is being discussed on this day 5 of the pretrial hearing in Mangione's state murder case. Mangione's attorneys are trying to get evidence thrown out, claiming it was wrongly obtained. Let's start this hour with NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Ellison, let's start with you and this newly released body camera footage. What have we learned from it? What does it show?
So, I mean, look, throughout this hearing, what we have seen and been talking about is how they are going through all this body camera footage frame by frame. This is one of them. This is from the initial responding officers. They have already taken the stand previously, but you're seeing the officers, and this is Officer Fry's body camera footage as they first approach Mangione. They come up to him. him. He closes a laptop and they ask him to take his mask down. He says, no problem. They say, what is your name? He says, Mark. They say, what's your last name? He says, Rosario. The officer tells him, we got a call for a suspicious person. He says, oh, I'm sorry. And then they ask him, do you have ID on you? They give it to, he gives it to them. That ultimately is what he was arrested for in Pennsylvania, right? Having this false ID that he gave to police. And in this video, we see the moment when he hands that over to them. It stops there. One of the things to keep in mind as we're talking about these exhibits and the body camera footage we're getting, they're being released kind of in a trickle, and oftentimes after we've heard and seen officers go through them on the stand, right? So this body camera footage is not from the officer that's currently on the stand right now. Another person is. This officer testified a couple of days ago, but the press has been asking in these court hearings to have some of this body camera footage so the public can see it. There have been a lot of questions about whether or not that would prejudice a jury. This is the first time they've released a snippet of the body camera footage that has really been at the heart of these pretrial hearings.
Danny Ellison referred to this. We've heard from a number of witnesses in this very lengthy pretrial hearing. Can you give us a little bit of what happened today? We're also going to see some descriptions. Those are the people that we've heard from so far. Multiple police officers, corrections officers who interacted with Mangione. What have we been hearing, and how do you think it's playing?
So what we just saw in that video, and maybe we can play a little of it again, is so important because for a criminal defense attorney like me, this is almost a textbook case study of one of the most important things in criminal law, which is police-citizen encounters and how they're initiated. What you have here, arguably, Mangione could have stood up and asked the magical question in all police-citizen encounters, am I free to leave? Because think of this, the reason the officers went there was twofold. There's a guy sitting in McDonald's too long, and he kind of looks like the CEO shooter. That would have really pushed the issue. How much did officers think they had articulable suspicion? And even if they had some suspicion to perform what's called a Terry stop, even then, all they could have done is a limited pat down of the outer clothing without grabbing for soft baggies or things like that, just to see if there were weapons. Instead, what he does, he pulls out an ID and hands them what is allegedly a false ID, thus committing a felony in Pennsylvania. And thus now all there's probable cause from here on out to at least stop him, detain him, and probably arrest him.
So, Ellison, beyond this new
So Fox News ran another report, right, that seemingly kind of it presents this in almost a counter narrative in a certain sense, as far as how the prosecution will effectively, implement their strategy and basically eliminate the ability of the defense to actually get this thrown out because it doesn't seem to actually fit this Miranda narrative that they're kind of relying upon in terms of providing them with the justification to not present, some of the most condemning pieces of evidence in terms of this specific case, and obviously is the point. But at the same time, their framework of the story basically presented it as the 3D printed weapon was truly the should be given the priority because it's cause for concern in terms of a wider network as far as this alleged attorney who's a defense or at least an expert in this sort of sense was providing his insight to that of Fox News at the time. And I just thought it was interesting because he was basically spotlighting the 3D printed gun as being implicating and being evidence of Luigi being a part of a criminal underworld, because there is in his mind, there's no way he could have gotten his hands on a 3D printed gun without being affiliated with a vast criminal network that would help provide him with that 3D printed weapon. So that alone, I felt like was terrible, disingenuous, a framework of the case itself, and kind of an undermining of really the inherent principles of liberty that come with that, of being able to almost circumvent the state in every way to arm yourself. And obviously, who knows what it's up to your interpretation ideologically. This is how I feel. Clearly, I think 3D printed weapons are a wonderful thing, just in terms of, actually providing individuals with a proper avenue of defending themselves and their family. But I don't think the state should have a monopoly on violence is clearly my perspective. But at the same time, to see them utilize this opportunity to kind of, again, spotlight the illegality of 3D printed weapons and how they should be associated, even subconsciously, with the audience of Fox News, who's engaging with this form of media. They will now have in their mind subconsciously this kind of direct connection to that of a vast criminal underworld component to 3D printed weapons again. So I just think it'll help encourage the kind of perspective of criminality being inherently attached to 3D printed guns as just an enterprise alone or whatever you would like to call it. But again, just very interesting and clearly, I think all the strange information that is again, it's trickling out, but it's happening on a daily basis. So much of it gets overlooked, I think, and very easily kind of memory hold. But I did want to at least mention the fact that there was an interesting story in regard to this prison guard who claims that
Austin, I love you, but I gotta either gotta continue the show on solo or I gotta go. I can't do another.
I'm good, man. We can leave. I just legitimately.
I heard I gotta do another, and I'm like, this sounds like another long story.
I'm not winding up. I swear, I'm not winding up.
Okay, all right.
I just wanted to basically dovetail the with a final point in terms of this Luigi.
Fair enough. It sounded like a separate storyline to me.
No, I swear.
I was like, fuck no, Austin. No. Go on.
I won't.
All right. The ending point. Fair enough. Okay.
Okay, so Luigi allegedly told this prison guard who just testified in the evidentiary hearing that he had a 3D printed gun in his backpack after his arrest, right? And so that in itself, I felt like he's volunteering this information, right? And so again, you have this prison guard claiming a prison guard testified that Mangione told him without prompting that he had a 3D printed pistol in his backpack, which police say they found along with the silencer and journal writings, obviously, that allegedly implicate him in the killing. So the defense lawyers try and cast doubt on this guard's assertions. But again, this is, seemingly just a very strange red flag as far as Mangione just volunteering this information to a prison guard. And he says, quote, you weren't asking him any questions. You weren't speaking to him at all. And out of nowhere, he says to you, I had a 3D printed pistol. Defense lawyer, the defense attorney asked him, and the guard said he did not ask Mangione any questions and testified during follow-up questioning by a prosecutor that he did not care about the outcome of the case. And obviously, I think the inherent strategy behind the defense is to clearly block this evidence from being presented, and that's the main takeaway, I think, from the Mangione update. But yeah. I don't know. It's looking more and more.
Patsies abound, don't they?
Yeah, the path of the patsy is very real. Is kind of the major takeaway. But anyway, buddy,
let's get out of here, brother. Where can people find you at? We'll continue this again next week, and actually, me and you will continue more this week. But on the Dutroux stuff, we'll be talking about the pizza connection. Connecting the French mob, the Sicilian mob, into the Dutroux affair, which, funny enough, ties into modern things going on like the Epstein stuff, and we'll make that all apparent for you this week if you're a patron. Otherwise, you're gonna have to wait a couple weeks for it to drop publicly. But awesome, let me know where we can find you at, and we'll do this again next week as we always do.
Hell yeah, brother. So you guys already know, just check out the Underclass podcast. Definitely subscribe on the YouTube and the Rumble. If you have the means, subscribe to the Patreon for sure. You'll gain access to Coming On Already Dead, obviously, and then the paywalled show of whatever this is. So go check that out. I'm sure we'll be doing another episode here in the next couple of days. And just remind me, buddy, if you can remember to. There was, if we don't end up talking about the Australian strange satanic ritual abuse network that seems to be international in scope and things, I think the details of that, if you don't end up covering it on the morning dump or something, we'll at least, I have a crazy video clip of that. And then one additional connection to that of the DC National Guard shooter, which I found to be fascinating and kind of an extraordinary red flag in itself. So
I already forgot about that.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy, man. And by the way, Hegseth would like us all to remember that AI is the future of American warfare.
Yep.
Okay, the Pentagon launching a new platform, so keep your eyes open, everybody. Head on a swivel. PsyOps season is alive and well. Influencer wars is just another political theater kayfabe. Am I wrong? I love you, Jose. Get the fuck out of here, buddy.
Love you too, brother. If you guys want to hear more coverage on the ongoing Fed theater that is our current world, then be sure to check out my show Monday through Friday. That's the goal. We don't always make it 11 a.m. Eastern. I usually do the morning show. Then I also do give you guys a couple paywalled episodes per week. The public gets them dropped later. So hey, if you guys want to support this show, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Rumble and Twitter as well at Tower Gang Jose. And if you want to support the show, the best way you can is with money over at patreon.com/nowayjose2020. The lowest level is $2. That gives you access to early episodes, gives you access to ad-free RSS feed, gives you access to Telegram, gives you access to the pre-show, post-show, and the video calls on me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead, which we are on right now, which is on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. I also give a big shout-out to my sponsors as a big thank you for their support. That's the highest level of my patron. You have my Toad, my previous co-host on Tower Gang, at Learn to Toad. Also at Brigade D's, at ZOVRCK, at _Infinite Zeal, Tim Tuttle, at Jolly Cleepold. Big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Tackless, 1-800 Car for Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, and Jacob Winograd of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. With that, guys, we're going to get out of here. We'll see you again next week at Tuesday, same time. You catch me every day, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, like I mentioned earlier. And then Austin every once a quarter, I think, or something. We get a... Just kidding. He's also got his regular show he does weekly with Sam Tripoli behind the paywall. So go give him some money, you poors. Give us all money. Give everybody money. Love you all, people. We're out of here. Bye-bye. By the way, for real, I need some people to let Austin cook. I'm dead serious. I will let Austin cook. I'll just walk out. I mean, if at 2 hours, just be like, my time's up, Austin. You keep going. Here's my plugs. Keep going. He can go for 5 hours. It's literally just feeding my algo. That's all it is, feeding my algo. I don't care. I'm good with it. I just need to sleep. So we can do that. We can have a Austin cook. We can call it the Let Austin Cook segment, and that's just where I rudely just leave at 2 hours and bounce and just let Austin just do another 3. I'm good with it. We can do that every week. All it does is benefit me. I'm just getting free labor. So with that, guys, we're out of here. Love you all. Bye-bye.